Well, after surviving Trelane, yeah, that was a terrible episode. They revisit Captain Pike's girlfriend's problem with having been impregnated by the Gorn, Turns out, oh no, the Gorn DNA is still, infesting her system, and oh no, what do you do? Well, it turns out a possible therapy for this involves a very rare flower. Yes. But as it happens, there was a Federation lab that had supply of that very flower. But it's on an abandoned base in a planet that is now in, neutral, not quite neutral zone, but it might as well be, territory after the war with the Klingons. So neither Klingon nor Federation may visit that planet anymore. Well, of course, Pike has to get there to get this flower for his girlfriend. Yeah. So Dr. Mbenga and Spock have volunteered to go take care of this. But Pike is like, no way I'm going, because it's his own personal thing. And it's against the rules, so this will be off the record. And we're just going to skip and hop over there. They'll take a shuttle, and him and Dr. Mbenga will go find the flower. All right. So, for the most part, it's probably one of their better efforts, because it's just a very simple thing. He wants to save his girlfriend, of course. But they're not telling him the whole story. No. See, it turns out that this will help his girlfriend. What's her name? Captain Patel or something? Anyway, the doctor's keeping it the secret from him because, doctor-patient confidentiality. But ultimately, the way they're going to save her is to go ahead and incorporate Gorn DNA in her system. They can't get it out, so is she going to turn into a lizard or a half-human lizard hybrid? Probably. I guess they'll make that a story in the long run. I don't know. But anyway, it's the only way, and she said, well, all right, do it. But she didn't want to tell Chris because she knew, and they had this argument later on because he would, no. I can't use the Kirk voice because he's, yeah. But he's like, no, there's got to be another way and all this stuff. But the doctor's like, no, there isn't. And she's running out of time. So anyway, that's the subplot of it all. The main thing, supposedly, was, hey, there's zombies on that planet. So they arrive, and other than vegetation, they don't get any life signs. So no animal life or anything. And yet, there appears to be movement and whatnot. Of course, it's zombies. It's whoever was left behind on the planet. So there's a bunch of Federation guys that are now zombies, and you basically have the zombie type thing. But at the same time, some Klingons show up. Oh no! But thank God for the zombies, because they attack the Klingons, and Pike and Mbenga manage to escape for a little bit. But eventually they get captured by these Klingons, the survivors of the Klingons who made it down there. And turns out the leader of them is the daughter of the Klingon that Mbenga killed in the previous season, And even though she didn't like the guy because they consider him a traitor and whatnot, but for her honor, she has to kill the man who took her daddy. And because she wanted to kill him. Anyway, yeah, it's Klingon stuff. By the way, they do look like Klingons still. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So she wants to fight Mbenga to the death. Well, just so happens there's this force-filled area they can use to keep the zombies at bay. While they have their fight to the death, Pike is like, hey, this is crazy. And she stabs Pike so that he's out of the, he can't be a problem. It's not fatal, And so Mbenga and the Klingon fight, but Mbenga gets the better of her, and then he decides, well, I'm going to be merciful, and she's like, no. So then she decides to let the zombies in, and she'll fight the zombies as they make good their escape or something like that. So they're on their way to the Klingon shuttle because they destroyed, Pike and Bingo's shuttle. But they're going to take off in the Klingon shuttle. But before they get there, well, here's the other subplot going on. Torres has always been an insubordinate little snot, Well, she still is, even more so. And she puts the Enterprise in danger because her plan is to fly in low in the atmosphere and quickly beam up the away team and escape before anyone can catch them. It's risky and everything, but it's really the only way to transport them out. And ultimately, that's what she does. But in doing so, she exposes the Enterprise to the Klingon battlecruiser and causes all kind of trouble. So it leaves number one with no other option but to use her plan. So they swoop in. It's a dangerous mission because, the re-entry burn and all that. But they're able to do it, and they beam Mbenga and Pike just before they get to the shuttle. So, hey, they're saved, and they, fortunately, Mbenga had the flower in his pocket, I guess, or in the, whatever, they got it, and they beam back, and they're able to do the therapy, and then Pike and his girlfriend have their little argument about Pike would have insisted they find another way, but I guess not. So his girlfriend's going to turn into a lizard, That's too bad. But anywho, just for the idea of a rescue mission type stuff, and then you throw in zombies because they don't have any imagination. So they said, oh, look. And they, it was some sort of the flora was a fungus was living on it. So they're stealing that from, the Last of Us version of zombies, I guess. I don't know, whatever. And because they just keep stealing. And of course, the whole Gorn thing reminds you of how they ripped off the xenomorphs and rewrote the Gorn for that. Oh boy, those guys. And so that's what takes you away, even when an episode almost kind of sort of has something. Plus, there's the problem of Mbenga. Once again, he admits he went out of his way to murder that Klingon because he was so mad at him, during, the war and all that. Of course, Pike figured the official story, it was self-defense and all that, but he said, no, I assassinated him. So once again, there's this thing, and Pike says, well, since this mission is off the books, I guess I don't report this. So he's still got to cover up for Mbenga, because remember, Mbenga, granted, you understood, he kept his daughter in the transporter system because she had this terrible disease until he could figure out how to treat it, and eventually he just lets her go live with this nebula entity thing, and that was stupid. But nevertheless, it put the Enterprise in danger. It was taking up power to keep his daughter in storage, and they didn't know about it. So he, this comes out, and Pike's like, well, I like you, so I'll just look the other way. But it is the sort of story that would go to explain away why Mbenga doesn't become chief of surgery on the Enterprise, or the chief medical officer, rather. And McCoy does while he's still aboard the Enterprise. But of course, it's no longer in conjunction with the original series. This is an alternate timeline. There's no way around it. And of course, they've admitted it. So come on. So I guess it doesn't really matter, but they didn't even really catch on to that. And here again, he's just violating rules all the time. I mean, how do you keep him in the service? How does he avoid a court-martial, and Pike's just like, oh, well, I'll look the other way. Well, then how does Pike maintain being a captain when he's covering up this and that? And then here he puts them all at risk for his girlfriend and all that sort of stuff. Maybe they would have okayed it. I doubt it, but you know, it's this sort of thing you're really stretching it. Now, it is the sort of thing Kirk would bend the rules and stuff like that. So I suppose to that point, but when you keep having examples of this, you've got problems. You just keep treading over the same territory here, if nothing else. But whatever, you know, he says, well, it's off the books. I'm never going to mention it. Well, all right. Hey, look, don't go around assassinating people. Oh, don't worry. That was one time only. It was the war and stuff, fog of war and all that. So, yeah, all right. Meanwhile, back to Torres, you know, the one who flies the ship. All that. So finally, number one calls her in and, you know, dresses her down and says, you're suspended for 2 weeks. You can't do that sort of thing. And something's up with her. I guess she's dealing with PTSD because of the Gorn attack she suffered. So she's acting out more, but not by much. She was always pretty snotty and insubordinate, that kind of thing. And I think they chalk it up that she's the funny one and that kind of stuff. But really, at this late date, boy, number one suddenly notices, hey, wait a minute, we have a command structure here, and hey, little missy, you better understand your rank. Yeah. So after all that, it's like, you got a serious problem with your pilot here. Will they address it? No, they'll talk about her feelings, and she'll probably melt down and cry at some point, and then feel better about it when she said, hey, the Gorn nearly killed me, and it scares me. And it's like, it's okay to be scared about dying. Ding. And that'll be, you know, a special show or something. But in the meantime, you've violated so much protocol and regulation and whatnot, you're probably not fit for Starfleet duty, you know? At least the original Starfleet. This one, hell, I don't know. I mean, their captain's basically the cook most of the time. He kind of sort of got to do something here. So there is that. So, you know, easily better than the last episode, but oof. Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Strange New Worlds. At least it was a new world. I don't think they've ever been to this planet before. So there you go, finally. It wasn't all that strange. It was just a jungle, you know. A zombie plot that was just sort of there, you know. It really didn't matter. They should just forget about it and don't revisit it because, it's, you know, can't you guys think of anything? And the answer is no. No. Oh, well. Anywho, there you go.